The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Step outside of your comfort zone. See the world with a whole new perspective. Join us and experience the unexplained on the Paranormal View.
And welcome everybody right here to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. I want to thank all those here in the chat room and those listening from around the world. If you are listening from somewhere else around the world and you'd like to come join us, come on over to paraxradionetwork.com and click on the chat button and be in with all these wonderful people. You can also ask us questions of the guest, and you can send those private chat to me, H. Foister, or Ceiling Cat, and we will get those answered for you. And if you're listening from somewhere else around the world and you have questions, but you don't want to come to the chat room, you can still send a question to theparanormalview@gmail.com, and Barbara will monitor that, so she will get the questions. So with that, we got a great show lined up for tonight. We have with us Barbara Duncan.
I'm here, folks. Hello.
And I have not seen Jeff yet come on, so he could be having some Skype problems or connection problems out there in California.
California's been interesting the last few days. We've had a couple of earthquakes down there and a few fires.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So he could be having some problems trying to get connected. But if he gets on, he'll let me know, and we'll get him into the chat. With that, though, we got a great guest with us tonight. He's been on a couple other times, and so his name is Jeff Wilson. He is the author of the Ohio Legends series, and he's tonight we're going to be talking about Volume 3, which is a lot of good, interesting stuff, and it's all about people and things from Ohio, and it can go way back in the 1700s even. So he does a lot of research and digs up all kinds of great stories and stuff, and the books are very interesting, which we will be talking about tonight. So with that, I'm going to welcome Jeffrey Wilson. Actually, it's Jeff Wilson.
Hi. It was kind of strange that you mentioned about being a researcher and digging up a bunch of stories. I realized that you were right, because most of my material is on dead people. So anyway, I started life as a commercial artist, and I've owned an independent sign business here in Vandalia, Ohio for the last 30 years. And I got caught with my love of history, and I began to scribble down some of these crazy, interesting stories from Ohio. And what happened was I had kind of patterned this thing as a single panel, cartoon-like thing, much like Ripley's Believe It or Not, but only about Ohio. Now, this was around 2008, and we all know what happened in those years. There was a bit of a recession, and the newspapers were having a very tough time of it. So I started out with about 30 of these wonderful single panel cartoon drawings that I'd done with an accompanying story that were meant to be just a single panel to fit on the newspaper. And suddenly I had 30 or 40 of these and nothing to do with them. So I started to post them on Facebook to try to get some kind of idea of what the stories that people wanted to see. And they started sending me their own stories. And before I knew it, I had enough to fill a book, and then enough to fill another book, and then even more to fill the third one, which we're going to talk about tonight. And in the third one, it's I tried to go back through and try to keep up with the amount of emails that I was getting from people who had really intriguing stories, and just try to put these in this small single-page format for a book. A lot of people really like these books because they're short, they're anecdotal, and they're like little bites of history, with the idea being that I originally wanted I started out with this big graphic drawing on each page and did a short little synopsis of the story. And that way people could, instead of being intimidated by a 1,800 page book, they just have this little bite-sized thing that gets them interested in history. And I've been really excited because I met a lot of new and crazy people. Henry is involved in that group, but everybody seems to have one good, goofy story about Ohio. And so that's how it kind of came to be there. But everybody loves the book because they can read it for a few minutes and then put it down, and read it for a few minutes and put it down, and not have to follow this long dramatic storyline arc. And it's fun, and people love it, and they tell me it's great for the bathroom. So,
which it is.
That's how this. Go ahead.
It is a good book for that, or keeping beside your bed at night and read a few stories out of it. It's real interesting though, and that was one of the things that I had to start with. You must do a huge amount of research for these books, and I assume you do, as you said, get leads also from your readers.
A lot of them, and a lot of them come. Especially it's been fun for me because, I'll go and I'll find these really wonderful and funky, out of the way historic societies like Radnor, Ohio, and all these places, and they go in there, and usually there's one crusty old guy that's in the back, and I'll go, I'll kind of schmooze with him with a little bit, and hi, how are you? This is my name and all that, but. Usually that one guy in the back room, he usually has one great, well-documented story on Ohio's really unique and diverse history. Everybody claims that Ohio is kind of like a flyover state or part of the Rust Belt. But once upon a time, Ohio was, the Silicon Valley, at the turn of the century. I mean, Kettering was from here. Of course, Edison was from here. The Wright brothers, and the list goes on and on and on. And, the stories that make these people that are, towers of industry and stuff like that, that make them become real to you are just part of the fun that I've had with the three books. Well, so anyway, we'll only be talking about the third book tonight. And if you want to see the other wonderful stories that are in all 400 stories in all, you have to buy books 1 and 2.
Jeff, you with us now?
It's devious, but it's me. What can I tell you?
Jeff, you with us now?
Yes, my PC is acting up big time.
Hi, Jeffrey. This is Jeff.
Yeah. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Real good. We had a wonderful talk last time about Margaret Hamilton being
yes.
The Wicked Witch of the West, and her actually starting out as a kindergarten teacher, and which I always thought was just fascinating. But I should start getting to these pages again. Now, I'm kind of handicapped here because I love to talk about my work, and I love to talk about my drawings because I consider myself an illustrator first and a researcher second. Because if I can find a good story that has a dramatic hook that gets people in there, and they will spend a few minutes and read it. But that's been the most fun of this thing, has been meeting some of the people that send in some of their stories that they have. They're often their direct relatives, and they tell me, they give me these wonderful snapshots of these people, things that you wouldn't think. I think it was, I always get this mixed up, Wilbur or Orville. I think it was Orville who died first of the two brothers, but no, it was Wilbur. But anyway, Orville Wright, of course, everybody knows him as one of the Wright brothers, and there's just about, you see him in the bowler hats and everything. But they were both kind of a nut, There were high school dropouts. Let's see. Now, Wilbur, he's especially fun because Wilbur, even though he was an incredible, gifted inventor and a terrific pilot, he was incompetent behind the wheel of a car. Now, Dayton police, they had a terrible time reining, their favorite son in because he always refused to get a driver's license and he never would buy insurance.
Oh, wow.
So and he was really clunky behind the wheel of a car, but it's these small little things that you come across that are a lot of fun. Now, when Patti, my wife, and we sat down and we decided we were going to do this book about oddball Ohio and strange things that happened in Ohio and everything like that. We made it our general rule to not include anything paranormal. Now, hold on a second before you say you're on the Paranormal View. How on earth did you say that? But with no paranormal stuff. None of this stuff exists. It's stories to tell children to frighten them. And there was in book 2, I related the fact that by the time I had reached book 2, I myself, for the first time, saw a ghost. So the paranormal stories are now in. So because it made me a real believer. And also, Henry was kind enough to take me last year along with his, I think it was the Middletown Historic Society, because they're pretty active down there, even though I had told Henry that I wasn't going to get out of the car. Because it all frightens me. I went there anyway. I had a wonderful time. I learned a lot about Middletown's history, and it was great fun. So the paranormal stuff is in. So what I've done for tonight, I've included some stories.
Yes, there's some in the book. There's some in the book, and we will get to them. We got some questions, though, that we're going to be asking here. Do you know if other authors are doing these for other states?
No. Well, yes and no and yes.
Wait, these being what?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
He used a pronoun. These being what? I got called away for a second. I missed.
Well,
I may have blinked.
There's one I came across this. I think it was Weird West that you guys had.
Weird New Jersey. Yeah, Weird New Jersey does different states.
And I've often thought to myself, Ohio is pretty irregular and pretty odd, and there must be 51 other states that are just as weird. But actually, there's been so much material from Ohio only that for a while I was overwhelmed. There was just so much stuff and tough to figure it out.
Well, that's great.
But it's all been wonderful fun for me because I've got a chance to draw, which I truly love to do, and because during the day, doing commercial signs for people, it's you can only do for lease the words for lease once, and you've already done it. Give me something fresh. You know what I'm saying?
Now but every one of your stories.
You could always do signs for dog parks that say for leash.
Oh, I've got 100 other stories that are in that vein that I can't retell just now.
Well, now you do each one of your stories has a picture about the story or the person or something, and you do all those caricatures and all the drawing for those, don't you?
Yes, that's the thing. Is I wanted very badly to hand letter all the copy, but it didn't turn out so well, and it actually wasn't readable. But I stuck to only the line drawings because they were for me. A simple black and white line drawing has not computer generated, has its own kind of genuine authenticity and look of what's real behind it. You can you can't do a black and white. If you're any good, you can't do a black and white drawing that's stiff and posed. It all has to have this own kind of genuine spontaneity that people, they react to. They always, they either love it or they hate it.
Well, you do a good job on it. So, Barbara, I know you got lots of questions too.
Well, yeah, but we were talking before for the show we did last week, and this reminds me a lot of old town newspapers or small town newspapers that still do the columns and still have this type of cartoon drawings or elaborate drawings in them for content. And is this kind of what you started off doing as well? I mean, are the local newspapers picking up some of your stories?
Well, local newspapers are not picking up my stories pretty much because I'm perceived as a book author, and they basically what happens is in order to put the story in there, it has to the panel has to be large enough to tell the story. These things do require some space, and every time I take up that much space, it affects how much space they have for advertisers. So that's I am proud and saddened to say that I have 167 rejection slips to my credit, which my wife Patti, she claims she's going to wallpaper the kitchen with them. But that's okay too, because some of these stories they need to be told, and they need some space to tell it in. And but like I said, it's been a lot of fun for me because of all the different stories that I've learned. Now, going back to Don Allison, and I met a ghost. I met a ghost at Gettysburg. What a great title that is, huh? I mean, I haven't got mine yet, but I'm going to. But it's a great title of a book it's got its own hook, and it's intriguing in its own way. But talking about last week's show, I had a question that I had in the chat room was, do you ever have spirits that follow you home? And what's beginning to happen is I've taken a hiatus from doing the line drawings, and I've been doing portraits a lot, oil portraits. Oil portraits are all very much fun indeed and stuff, but what's happened is I've had to tell people, no dead people. I'm only going to paint live people, because I found since I've done the last 8 or 10 of them that I get the feeling when I'm here alone at the shop that somebody's looking over my shoulder all the time.
Poker, you say, look, that's not right. I don't look like that.
How do these people I know they're here. I know they're watching. I know they're a little critical and stuff, because I can just feel like anything. I don't know. Do these spirits, do they all get together and they swap stories and stuff? I mean, how does word get out? But it must. But,
well, Jeff,
yeah.
I don't want to give you the jitters, but there's such a thing as spirit drawings.
Spirit what?
Spirit drawings, where they actually, it's like automatic writing, where they start drawing through you.
No. Well, let's just hope that whoever that comes in and helps me out is good. And, get some decent art going on here, But
drawings have red eyes.
Oh, but yeah, they've been a lot of fun. But like I said, now it's to the point where, like I said, I have over 400 of these stories, and they're a mix of strange coincidences, paranormal stuff, flat out paranormal stuff. No apologies for it,
Well,
and
you got
so. I promised Henry that I wouldn't talk so fast, so I'm gonna give you I got to give you some time to talk, and I'm sorry for babbling on.
Well, you're gonna get the ghost when you start drawing a ghost of, say, a famous artist in Ohio, and you're going to get that EVP back saying you painted the nose too.
Well, there's been so many terrific artists from Ohio that it's strange that you mentioned that, because just last week I finished up a portrait of myself that I had patterned after a real famous portrait by Robert Henri. He's from Cincinnati, brilliant artist. And anyway, what I did was I framed the picture and I put the clothes on him and everything. And then when it came to my face, I painted my own face at it. And strangely enough, it had a little bit of his influence in the brushstrokes. So you never know how these things will turn out.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, you got some great stories and history that is in this book, and I think we're going to be asking you some questions on them and touch on some of these. For instance, on page 6, you talk about the world's first police car in 1899 in Akron, Ohio.
I'm going to it now. Yes, and the great part about it is the world's first police car that was this 1899. I just kind of threw that story out there because it was a world's first. Ohio has so many world's firsts, it's unbelievable. But I just threw it out there because, and this in order to be accurate with the original, instead of drawing it, I used a copy of their daguerreotype that they had. And that way it was authentic. Anyway, the guy who was the great grandson of the man who built it got a hold of me, and he was telling me all these stories that I can't retell, but about the cops back then. And it was really, really pretty neat. It added more depth to a story. But like I say, though, I only have, I tried to limit the story to having it and the drawing both fit on one single page.
And
that way.
You said that that was an electric car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let me say, yeah, it was. Let me see. Yep, it was. It could reach up to 16 miles per hour. That was really fast back then, and could travel 30 miles before the batteries needed recharging. So it was a pretty neat thing that they had going on there. It really was. But it was a beginning, So I think all the inventors nowadays are standing on the shoulders of the people that were around here in the 1900s. Really, I do. And I will stop here so that way I can have another question.
Barbara, you got one, or Jeff? I don't want to take up the whole show here.
Oddly enough, you were indicating earlier about your wife thinking of wallpapering the wall with your rejection slips. Do you remember a comedy duo named Bob and Ray?
Yeah.
They did a show on Broadway that got almost universally good reviews. Only one person gave them a bad review, and apparently Ray never read it, and Bob framed it.
Huh. There was a book a few years ago that was written by this guy. Of course, I can't remember his name now, but in this book, it was full of bad rejection slips. That's all it was from these writers that are like incredibly well known. Hemingway, they roasted him. It was one I can't ever forget is of course Ted Giesel, Dr. Seuss. He had one in there, and I forgot what it was from New York or whoever it was that sent him his cartoons back to him and said, first, go back to school and learn to draw. Second, go back to school and learn to write. Then resubmit your work for further consideration. Wow. I mean, they're just practically brutal on. I mean, and they were brutal on me because, I pretty much deserved it. But how are you going to learn unless you have that one voice saying, that doesn't go, that doesn't fly, But anyway, should I start with some of my stories or give you guys a chance to talk again?
Exactly. There was also a book called No Turn Unstoned, where all all of these actors submitted their bad reviews when they were on stage or such.
Well, it's kind of neat because you get to thinking that maybe that you too have a chance, you know. If these icons are doing that. Hey, do you want to hear a story?
A story? Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Rhetorical.
Now this one, which I settling on, this one is about the Ridges. Now the Ridges has a pretty lousy reputation in the state of Ohio because it deserves it, and it's one of those terribly odd stories. The Ridges was actually another name for the Athens Lunatic Asylum. It was operated from 1874 to 1993. The Athens Lunatic Asylum, later renamed the Ridges, was one of Ohio's largest hospitals for mentally ill. Originally, it was built using the guidelines of the Kirkbride Plan, a standardized scheme for mental institutions that featured wide open spaces, individual rooms, and compassionate treatment. Sounds good to me. Now, soon the number of patients increased to unmanageable levels. The asylum became overcrowded with the elderly, homeless, and those who had become a financial burden on their families. By the 1950s, the hospital had grown to nearly 2,000 patients and more than 3 times its capacity. It just goes from bad to worse. The quality of care declined. Patients were often beaten, restrained to their beds for several days at a time, and regularly subjected to mass lobotomies. Wonderful subject we have here.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful story. In 1979, patient Margaret Schilling went missing. There was a really good portrait I've done of her, and it looks spooky and sad, and I did a good job on this one. But you can go to my Ohio Legends Facebook page, Ohio Legends Jeff Wilson, and see the artwork for all of this.
All right.
Of course, I had to throw in that little
that's good
tip in there. Anyway, Margaret Schilling went missing, and hospital staff searched for days, but she was nowhere to be found. This was like a huge medical building that's top floors weren't used. Anyway, 42 days later, a maintenance worker working on an unused top floor discovered her body. Apparently, she had locked herself inside an abandoned room and died of heart failure. Strangely, her corpse was in such bad state of decomposition that her body fluids had soaked into the concrete, creating a permanent stain. To this day, and that's true, I've seen pictures of it, and I hope some of you listeners have a chance to look it up on the net too, because there are a bunch of these pictures that are out there. And to this day, the stain cannot be scrubbed away. They've used everything on it. And local legend says that Margaret Schilling's ghost still haunts the top floors of the Ridges, trying doorknob after doorknob, looking for a way out. Now, other people have done investigations there, and they've seen and heard this kind of activity, which is creepy.
Wow.
But I promised again that I wouldn't talk so fast and give you all a chance to.
All right.
I keep breaking my promises to you.
On page 20, you got a story about the Bloody Bridge.
The Bloody Bridge.
That was a rivalry between Bill and Jack for the love of Minnie. So tell us what happened.
Now, see this one. See, there's a lot of documentation on this, and anyway, the Auglaize Historic Society, Auglaize County, they placed a marker in 1976, and the marker reads, during the canal years. Now, the canal years in Ohio were pretty much, our super highway of delivering goods and services everywhere. There's only 1 or 2 lakes aside of the Great Lakes that are in the landlocked central Ohio portion. That's all that they have. And they built these reservoirs so that way they would have waterways for the canal boats to go just about anywhere in Ohio. But anyway, the marker that the Historic Society placed says, during the, I'll quote, during the canal years of the 1850s, a rivalry grew between Bill Jones and Jack Billings for the love of Minnie Warren. this became hatred by Bill because Minnie chose Jack. Okay? One fall night in 1854, returning from a party, Minnie and Jack were surprised on the bridge by Bill, who had arrived with an axe. With one swing, Bill severed Jack's head, and seeing this, Minnie screamed and fell into the watery grave. Bill disappeared, and when a skeleton was found years later in a nearby well, people asked, was it suicide or justice? You know, meaning the guy that had killed this couple, did he throw himself into the well to commit suicide, or did family members come and get justice themselves? Anyway,
Well, you're
almost immediately after the murder. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead. Finish it.
Okay, that was the end of the quote. Anyway, almost immediately after the murder, whispers of ghostly images seen on or around the bridge surfaced. But the thing that's happened, and it's repeated itself generation upon generation of this returning theme, is that they say that on moonless nights, when you look off the bridge into the dark water, you can see Minnie Warren's face looking back. It's been documented again and again and again, and it's one of those stories. That is part of legend, perhaps, but it's all very awful and true.
And it's not a case of pareidolia or seeing one's own reflection looking up?
It may be, but it's one of those things where this is the fabric of old Ohio. All these, stories and legends, and some of them, of course, have been written up by the newspapers at the time. Some of them, had yes or had no, a lot of documentation with it. I try to, whenever I do this research, try to go for 3 different sources, and if they're all telling pretty much the same story, then I take them as at least halfway genuine. You know what I'm saying?
Which is kind of like
I had to do.
It's kind of like your first ghost story tonight.
Yeah, the first one that was pretty off. Any questions?
Yeah, Barbara's probably chomping at the bits right now.
Well, you're also busting quite a few myths in this book too, because I was always under the assumption that the first microwave oven came out of Iowa with the Amana colonies and Maytag right there. But on page 81, it's actually in Mansfield, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where they were manufactured. Now, where it was invented was another place. We're on page 81. You say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, I just thought the part that was fascinating was, my God, the thing was the size of a refrigerator and cost thousands of dollars.
Right.
And but the thing about it was that I felt was extra special creepy. There was the original ad shows this lady, and she's putting some baby food in a microwave oven, and of course no one puts baby food in a and then in her other arm that she's holding a child, which in its own way, just the advertising art was enough to just be too creepy not to pass up.
It's extremely scary, considering that probably the shielding wasn't as good as it should be. Today, I'm not sure I'd want to hold a baby that close to a microwave oven.
Not with this size. Yeah. I mean, it was huge.
Well, at least the baby doesn't have a pacemaker or anything.
True, but it might need one.
That story goes back to I was helping feed the baby one night, and I thought it was clever by putting some of the formula in the microwave and heating it up just for a few seconds. But it was enough that I never did that one again.
No. But want to go back to the paranormal here, the Magic 8 Ball, for example.
I love that story. It's one of those things. Can I dig it up and read it to you?
Please.
Sure. Yeah.
Page 43.
Okay.
I always thought it was just a novel toy. I didn't know it was actually based on the spiritualism craze.
I know. I was just Everybody had one. Did you have one?
Oh,
I still got one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyway. Albert C. Carter was the son of a professional Cincinnati clairvoyant who called herself Madame Mary Carter. Madame Carter capitalized on the spiritualist craze during World War II and held seances that were pretty popular at the time. Madame Carter's best recorded feat involved a device she called the psycho slate. It consisted of a slate inside a box with a lid that covered it. The client would ask a question of the spirits, and the scratching sound was heard from the box. And Madame Carter would open the box, and there would be the answer. Now, how she actually did this is still a mystery to this day, but I've talked to a few of mine that are magician friends, and they said, "Oh, that's the oldest one in the book." So, but anyway, okay. Now, Albert, her son, through a confirmed psychic, saw this as a terrific opportunity and invented a portable fortune-telling device that anyone could use at any time or place. The original psycho seer was an iridescent crystal ball filled with molasses. In 1944, Carter patented his psycho seer, and in 1948, his device got the attention of Chicago's Brunswick Billiards. Brunswick commissioned Carter to make a version in black and white to resemble a billiard 8-ball. I didn't know that. In 1950, Mattel began to promote and manufacture the Magic 8-ball, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now, in case you've forgotten, the possible answers are 10 positive answers, 5 non-committal, and 5 negative answers. Can you recall any of the possible answers?
Oh yeah, all signs point to 0. I know is 1. Sometimes it's just no or yes. Things
Ask
like that.
Ask again later. Yeah.
Ask again later. Yeah, exactly.
Ask again later. That's the one I always got. Or the reply hazy. Try again. But anyway, that was just one of those things that came up from Ohio, and one of those commonplace things that were everywhere that you never knew got it started in Ohio. That's part of the fun, because microwave ovens, the first car, traffic lights. This is all from Ohioans. It's all from Ohioans. The traffic light thing, that was Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan came up with that one. Now he's remembered mostly for his respirators that he came up with, because I forget what year it was, but the Cleveland Public Works were digging a tunnel somewhere, and it began to flood, and something like 39 of these people were caught underground and suffocating to death. So out of nowhere, Garrett Morgan, who was also an African American, grabbed his respirator, ran down the mine shaft, and carried every man out on his back, which is, of course, he was written up a lot in the papers and everything like that. And his respirator, which he had originally intended for firemen to use to enter burning buildings, it took off real fast, and he made a ton of money. But as it happened later on in life, he saw an accident between a car and a horse and buggy, and the horse had become so injured so badly they had to put it out of his misery. They had to kill him on the spot, and he was pretty moved by this experience, and so he came up with the synchronized traffic signal, for a 4-way stop that has the red light and the green light and everything like that. I thought that was just, one of those stories where, and the guy was from Ohio. He started out life repairing sewing machines, and I don't know how that led to respirators or traffic lights, but he made a pile of money. But now I'll turn it over to you.
Well, you got a lot of stories in here that's historical too. On page 23, you talk about prehistoric mastodon that was found in Ohio.
Yeah, now that was the burning. What number? What page is that? Was that again?
Page 23.
23. Okay, 23. Nope, it's gone. And here it is, the Burning Tree Mastodon. Yeah, that was the one. It was found on a golf course, was it? Yes, it was. It was discovered on a golf course. But the big thing that I thought was so strange about it was like the first complete mastodon skeleton that they had ever discovered. It was all complete there. And what was interesting was, everything on this baby mastodon was preserved really well. And whenever the archaeologists or the scientists or whatever got to the intestinal contents of this mastodon to see what they lived on way back in the Ice Age or wherever it was, but they found 38 species of still living gut bacteria, which was oh my God, I had no idea that something like that could
survive. Yeah, wow,
that many years, but that was all documented. And another true story from Ohio Legends, which you can also find at Amazon.com.
All right.
So you say they found the mastodon skeleton on a golf course?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just part of it. Well, that's just part of the course.
Let's see. That was the Burning Tree Golf Course, and yes, that one was that. And
that's okay. The comedy was timing, and it just fell on its face.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
They did find something in Cincinnati, and I forgot exactly how.
Oh, that's the
ancient.
Cincinnati tablet.
The Cincinnati tablet, and that's on page 31, I believe it is, called the Adena artifact.
Oh, that's 31. 31, yes, that's Cincinnati. In 1841 is when they discovered it. It was in Cincinnati.
Wow.
Wow.
But nobody knows what it really is.
But they anyway, it was this really strange 3x5 inch tablet. It kind of about the size of an iPhone, I guess. And it had all these intricate carvings on there that were taken for glyphs for years and years as some kind of, because nobody knows, what the Adena, if they had a written writing or anything, and it went on for years and years, and there were lots of different speculations on it. People were saying that it was actually a prophecy of when the world will end, and some kind of they're trying to triangulate it with all kind of astrological objects to see if it had anything. But the best answer that the archaeologists were able to come about with was they turned it over and they looked to the backside, and the backside of this tablet had these ruts in the back of it, and it came to them that those ruts or striated lines that were on the backside of the tablet were actually for the Indians to hone their awls. That's AWL. So whenever they tattooed somebody, they would, with a sharpened awl, they would use this opposite side that had these wonderful glyphs on it as a pattern and follow the pattern there, which is like, I thought it was a really neat idea, but like it had been a mystery since 1841, and it's probably about the best probable answer for that one. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you,
Barbara.
So it wasn't like an overdue library card or something like that.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been. But the tattoo part of the story kind of caught me because everybody's getting tattoos nowadays. And
when you said striations for a moment, I almost thought that it might have been. It's similar to, there was I forget where it was. I just came across, there was a story about some large stretch of rock that everyone thought had these like Viking runes on them, and they were trying to decipher them for centuries or something. And then somebody just said, it's just natural cracks in the rock, right? It's not actually ruins it all. Oops.
Well, maybe it's because we're all just a little too smart nowadays. But there are some things that are out there that are genuine and genuinely strange that we still don't have an answer for, and that's for me, it's the best part of the thing is still having riddle. If we come to the point where nothing amazes us anymore, then I think we're truly lost.
Wow.
All
right. If anyone has questions, you can private chat them to H. Foister or Ceiling Cat, and we will get these over to Jeff to answer. So with that, Barbara, you got another one, or Jeff?
Well, I love the artwork in this one. And the subtitle of this book is Ohio Legends 3, Volume 3, Every Picture Tells a Story.
Yes.
And it is, and one that you did, and one piece of artwork, which I assume is yours, which you really should be selling as a poster, is for Troll Hole.
Troll Hole, yeah.
Cutest little troll I have ever seen.
Thank you.
What page
Thank
is
you
that?
so much. That's funny because that one drawing and that one story, I was told by so many people, you're not going to use that, And I said, no, because everybody knows trolls. It's wonderful, And I was told by so many people, oh, that's ugly. Oh, that doesn't fit with the overall, genre or set of the book. But I thought they were cute.
It is absolutely adorable.
But anyway, thank you. Thank you so much.
What page was that?
Page 109.
Did you say 109?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Oh, it's like one of the troll dolls. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not a troll. A cute little troll.
Yeah, cute little troll. Yeah.
And that
cute.
That they've got a museum. It says the world's largest troll collection in Alliance, Ohio. You could probably look it up online.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about Ohio. I read somewhere that Ohio has more museums and collections and stuff like that than any other state, because I really think that the people here that are from Ohio must have some kind of like inner energy that kind of stirs everyone else. And when you get them all together, they do terrible things, But there's like there's a museum in Columbus somewhere where someone has there was a eye, ears, and nose specialist and their son who made their museum things that were caught in people's throats.
Wow.
And that was in of course in Columbus. I also have the largest collection of what do you call it? Contraceptive things where they, have all these bizarre clamp-like things and God knows whatever, and and everybody's idea for contraception. That's in Columbus, and also there's up in Wooster, Ohio. There's a guy that lived up there. His name was Mooney Warther. Now that's kind of a strange name in and of itself, but he did the most incredible, exquisite models of railroad cars and Lincoln's funeral train, and that's all done as all these exotic woods and stuff like it. And that is unbelievable. And I guess his wife, who also must have had a lot of time on her hands, has this button collection that's like 30 or 40,000 different buttons that she collected over a lifetime. And there's even a pencil sharpening museum. The list just goes on and on of wonderfully odd things that people are collecting and stuff. But let's see, have you got any paranormal ones that you'd like to hear about?
I care about all of them.
Oh, sure. We got lots of them because there's 2 or 3 of them.
I'm curious about the story. You said you saw a ghost. Did you? Did I mishear that?
What's that? What's that? I can't.
You actually saw a ghost yourself.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, I talked about it on the second time I was on your show. I was working for, let's call them an overnight package delivery and pickup service that offers the world on time. Anyway, the point of it was I was in the base of the Kettering Tower downtown. It's a Kettering Tower, of course. You know, it bears Charles Kettering's name, and it's just the biggest building. It's in downtown Dayton, and the point of that story is my job was to be in the basement, and I had to unlock one of those metal. They're like a mailbox, but they have their logo on it, and they're mostly white, you know, where people put documents and stuff like that in it. Anyway, the point of the story was that I would come in at the same time every night. Security people knew me. I knew all the people there, you know. And one night as I went down into the basement to empty this drop box, I had my hands full of packages, and I was riding up the elevator. And as I rode up the elevator, I came out to the lobby of the Kettering Tower, which is a big place. And of course, there's a bank of security people there, and also, there were also a cleaning crew that was there. And as I went to head out this revolving door, it actually had a push bar on it. There was a little guy that was standing. As I could have reached out and touched him with my hand. He was standing and he was watching me, and I turned around to use my hip to bump open the push bar on the door, and this guy was gone. He was there just a second earlier, and I mean just a second earlier. And when I turned around, you know, to bump open the door, the guy who had been there just an arm's length away was gone that fast. And the lobby of the Kettering Tower is so big, there's no place to hide, you know, in there. Or this guy was old enough that he couldn't have scampered off like a chipmunk, you know. And by the time that I got back to my truck, I was shaking all over because I knew what I had seen, and this guy was full color. He was 3D. I mean, he was there just 1 second ago, and in an impossible amount of time, in just a flash, he was just suddenly gone, and the lobby was empty. And I finished my route in record time that night.
So my question is, did you ever think to stop to sketch him and ask the people in the building if they recognized him?
Yes, I sketched him, and the security people at the Kettering Tower, they had a lot of attrition, you know. There's a lot of turnovers where sometimes they're at this place, sometimes they're at the, you know, Third National Building, you know, and I could never hook up with anybody else that actually recognized who this guy was. But this guy was real, and I have never been. It's one in the space that of time it takes to take a breath. I became a true believer.
All right. We got about 6 minutes before we take a quick little break. Got a whole bunch of them, man. I got a book full. There's a cute little.
I got 3 books full.
Well, there's a cute little story on page 66 about Jim and Jim, and it's neat because they were twins, but they were separated at birth. And you ought to tell that story. It's on page 66.
Okay, let's see. Yes. That's one of those things where this is a really well-documented case all the way through. And Actually, there's like tons of pictures of these guys on the internet. You have to see it, and it really is amazing. Now, Jim Springer and Jim Lewis were identical twins. They were separated at birth and adopted by separate families. The Lewis family of Lima, Ohio, and the Springer family of Piqua, Ohio, by coincidence, each named each infant James. In 1977, Lewis decided to track down his brother and discovered Springer's name through courthouse records. The Jim twins were reunited after being separated for 37 years and found they had a great deal more in common than just their first name. During childhood, they both had dogs named Toy. Both Jims had enjoyed math and carpentry and hated spelling. Both Jims had been married twice, first to women named Linda. Both of them married women named Linda. And then to women named Betty. Both of them got divorces, and they both renamed Bettys. Both had sons that they had named James Allen. Both chain smoked the same brand of cigarettes, had woodworking shops in their garages at home. Both drove Chevrolets and worked for law enforcement in separate counties. Both Jims had identical medical records, were nail biters, and suffered from tension headaches, and also had vacations on the same Florida beach. Now, the Springer and Lewis families never met the 15-year-old unwed mother of their sons. They were told that their son had a twin that died at birth. That's what these guys were told. And if you have a chance to check out on the internet, see the remarkable coincidence of how they both look, and it's totally creepy. It's one of those things where, is it learning or is it environment, or but these two guys lived the same life pretty much, but each of them is a dramatic coincidence of each one having the same first name, Jim, both of them having first wives, of the same name, divorced and had second wives, both of the same name also. That's, if somebody would have told me that story, I'd have said, no, I don't believe that one at all. But it's true.
All right.
There's
we got a couple minutes left. We can do a real quick one here. The first oil well in America was in Caldwell, Ohio, 1814.
That was the one where they were trying to drill for salt or something like that.
Yeah, they was trying to find something else, and they found oil.
Yeah. They said, well, oil, what do we do with all this oil? And they capped it up and forgot about it, right? There are a lot of oil wells in Ohio, believe it or not. They're nothing compared to Texas and some of those western states, but you do occasionally see them a lot. And I'm not finding the oil well story in here at all.
Oh, that's on page. Hold on, I got it right here. It's on page 87.
Thank you. You think that the guy who wrote this stuff should know where things are. The Thorle McKee well in Noble County. It's the first oil-producing well in North America, whether they wanted it to be an oil producer or not. In 1814, Silas Thoria and Robert McKee dug a well to extract salt brine. That was it, salt brine, and accidentally discovered oil. Back at the time, salt was the thing for pioneers.
You had to preserve food with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, at that time, oil had little value, and Thorla and McKee had many setbacks due to the well's pressure buildup and the release of oil and natural gas. 2 years later, they drilled a second well that began producing a barrel of oil a week. Later in 1831, operations abruptly ceased when fire completely destroyed the facility. According to Gas and Oil magazine, from 1860 to 2012, over 275,000 oil wells have been drilled in Ohio, ranking it fourth behind Texas, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania in total oil and natural gas production. Well, there.
All right. All right. I think
quite a lot.
we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Probably be about 5-6 minutes, something like that. You won't hear anything, but your mic will be live, so you can't talk. I get that in there first, see? And with that, we're going to let Jeff, as soon as I get ready here, I'll let Jeff take us out on a quick break. I got to get over to the music part. All right, Jeff, you want to take us out, and we'll be back in about 5-6 minutes. You'll hear me talking when we come back.
You're listening to the Paranormal View on para-x.com with hosts Henry Foister, ceiling cat Barbara Duncan, and myself, Jeffrey Gould, with our guest author and illustrator tonight, returning Jeff Wilson. So stay tuned for more of the Paranormal View after the break.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para-X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those here in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate each and every one. Let's see. We have with us Barbara Duncan. Maybe.
I'm still here.
we got Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
And let's see. We have our guest back. We want to welcome Jeff Wilson.
Hello, and thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Jeff, we have to do a paranormal investigation right here. What was going on? You're not sitting on a duck, I guess, but it sounds almost like the cawing of a raven. That glawk sound.
That's Skype.
That's Skype.
Yep.
Yeah. Every time you put a message in, it blinks. Yeah. Unless you have that sound turned off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops.
Yeah, because it's messaging you or you're messaging somebody, but every time you do it, you have to have the sound on that muted. Otherwise, you'll hear bloop, bloop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Debunked.
Yep.
I guess so.
So that wasn't no mystery.
Well, the singing was still there, but
Well, I have an answer for another mystery that went on. I accidentally forgot that I had just read that the mic was still hot, and I shouted, "Jeff Wilson!" And I apologize for that. Really, I do. So I don't get out much. Really.
You're trying to say your wife don't let you out much? Is that what it is?
Well, she keeps me on a short leash, let me tell you.
Short leash.
back to getting a sign saying "on leash."
Well, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But anyway,
you've got stories in here that they're kind of like horror stories or things that was just very terrible. And you have one of those called "The Horror in Lebanon" on page 77.
That's funny because I was just looking at that right here. It's actually up and it's in front of me. Actually, a couple years ago, I did a presentation for John Zimkus at the Warren Historic Society, and he gave me this one. He says, "You got to do something with this," because they're very, very big on history down there in Warren County. But this story, you're right, is a horror story, and it is tremendously sad. Anyway, Henry Harmer and his wife moved to Lebanon, Ohio in 1802. The Harmers built a 2-story log house for their family that included 3 sons and 4 daughters. The house was built with 2 rooms on the first floor and 2 above on the second. A large stone chimney in the center of the building had an open fireplace to each one of the 4 rooms. That's an important part you have to remember. Now, on May 30th of 1844, this is all documented pretty well through Warren County. A storm rapidly developed, as it does in Ohio. Henry can tell you about that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not uncommon for a storm to come out of nowhere. But in an instant, from a pleasant and beautiful beautiful spring day, it just turned like that. The storm rapidly developed, and a farmer working across the road heard a tremendous crash and saw lightning strike the Harmer's great stone chimney. Now, the lightning bolt had descended the chimney and instantly killed all 4 sisters that were in 4 separate rooms. Anne, Elizabeth, Mary, and Sarah Harmer were buried side by side in a single grave at the Pioneer Cemetery in Lebanon. A surviving brother, Jacob Harmer, who was present at the time of the tragedy, was said to have never really recovered and committed suicide in the house years later. With that, it has a really nice picture of the lightning bolt descending upon the farmhouse, and it's another one of those local legends and stories, though it is well documented that about the it was a pretty harsh life, and back in the 1800s here in Ohio, but there are a great many other stories. I tried to stay away from too many of these stories because they're just a little dark. I have a lot more stories on inventors and odd coincidences and stuff like that. But sometimes some people they want to have that just a little bit to keep that overrunning kind of arc of the story.
It's the history, so I mean, it's stories to be told. Now, was the girls and the boys all killed? The mother and father wasn't.
No, that they were alone at a home at that time. Actually, one of the adult daughters was holding a baby, and when she was struck by the descending lightning bolt, the baby fell from her hands and survived, thankfully. But it's just one of those unerringly sad stories, because I never knew that they could build a house with a chimney that faced all the rooms in the house like that. But
I have seen them like that. Yes. You build a fire downstairs in the main one, and there's openings to each one of the rooms where the heat comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Very, very sad. Very sad.
But did you find that pretty much every town has that one creepy house in it?
Yes. Everybody has, and they're classics. Actually, when I was a kid, me and a bunch of friends that were all of 8 to 10 years old broke into the ghost house up the street, and which of course is against the law, and I will deny it if you ask me about it. But we of course we ventured inside the house, and of course they had framed pictures of the very solemn people. You know how they took pictures back then, frightened the wits out of us, and we never went back. So, but it made for a good story. But all small towns have the one over opulent house that's really nicely done by the one guy that made a big pile of money. But this it was a part of it, sad part of it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it's kind of a rite of passage, I think, for some kids to be able to go to that creepy house that's not occupied, that supposedly has the ghost of whoever.
Yes.
And but it's for every kid that is out there that enjoys paranormal, I think, too.
And for some of us that still have the mindset of an 8-year-old, I will tell you another story. Way back in the 70s, okay? Way back in the 70s, my wife and I, but we're still dating. We had heard about Weinhold Reese, who was an incredible artist at the time, and he had done these tile murals that were in at the Union Terminal and Station down in Cincinnati. Well, Patti and I went there, and we thought if we could just get in, just to see some of these things, it would be really nice. And they had these double doors that were push bar doors that had been with a chain and a padlock, loosely wrapped and locked and everything. And there was just enough room where I could have squeezed in there and kind of did my own kind of urban archaeology and stuff like that on it. And I thought, should I? And I was really close to, and Patti my wife was there. Well, now she's my wife, but she wasn't back then. And so I chickened out. And when I chickened out, now this is before Union Terminal had been turned into the real, incredible jewel of a natural history museum that they have down there. It's just stunning and beautiful. But it was when the terminal had been pretty much in a state of disrepair and stuff, and we very badly wanted to see some of his paintings and some of his mosaic work that they had done in the reel. But I chickened out, and Patti and I, we got back in our 74 Pinto, and we started to drive out the parking lot just in time to see two Cincinnati cops kind of circling in the parking lot, trying to see what we were doing. So we got out of there as fast as we could, and they didn't catch us or anything. But I was sorely tempted that day just to get in and see it. If you have a chance though to see the Union Terminal Museum down there, they have refinished all of Wynald Reese's artwork, because he had done a bunch of paint studies, and redone his entire amazing mural that they have. If you have a chance sometime when you're on the internet to check out some of the pictures of this place, it's it's like the height of Art Nouveau, and it just takes your breath away. It's so beautiful. But I almost broke into Union Terminal, but I thought better of it, and we snuck off before we got inside, thankfully, because they would have caught us sure enough.
Now you have
but
some.
Anyway,
You have some great stories about endurance, and one of them was with two young boys, and that is called Levi and Pepper Perry. That was page 90. You want to tell them the story on that?
Yes, I do, because this is the thing that I wanted to hit most on, was these people that lived back then, these incredibly tough and resilient people, the things that they did. Just to stay alive was just amazing. Now, Levi and Pepper Perry. Now this one comes from Radnor Historic Society. That's kind of outside of Richwood, Ohio, and it's one of those ones that I got from the crusty old guy in the back room I was telling you about.
Yes.
But this is in Delaware County, and this was taken from Henry Howe's Historical Collections of Ohio. I think that he came up with those in like the 1840s, which was pretty popular at the time. Well, anyway, Henry Howe's account goes, in the fall of 1803, Henry Perry, who was the father, built a cabin near Delphi, Ohio, and left his two sons and returned to Philadelphia for the remainder of his family. This is in 1803, which is pretty crazy. And
these boys were real young, wasn't they?
Yeah, that was. Let's see. 1803, Henry Perry built a cabin near Delphi and left his two sons and returned to Philadelphia for the remainder of his family. But finding his wife was sick and afterwards becoming sick himself, he could not make the long journey back till the following June. These two little boys, Levi and Pepper, were only 11 and 9 years old and remained there alone for 8 months, surrounded by Indians with no food but the rabbits that they could catch in hollow logs and the remains of one deer that the wolves had killed near them. The winter was a severe one, and their cabin was open, having neither daubing, fireplace, or chimney, and they had no gun and were wholly unaccustomed to forest life, being fresh from Wales. And yet these two little fellows not only struggled through, but actually made a considerable clearing for more farming. Now, when these settlers arrived from Wales, not many had English. you know, and and worse still, they were, you know, basically it was like an agrarian existence, and they had no idea of how to live, you know, in this, basically it was just a forest, you know, somehow they made it through and cleared more land to be planted for crops. These people were heroes. They were tremendously. 8 months. I mean, you know, at 11 years old. I mean, you know, nowadays, you know, they wouldn't have lasted just any time at all, because back then in 1803, Indians didn't take very kindly to settlers at all. And there are a great many stories of excesses that happened, and a great many people were massacred, you know, but there were excesses on both sides. But anyway, yes, they lived through. And that's a real good story of how tough these kids were back then.
Right. Barbara?
Yeah, speaking of tough, because there are some things that really catch my eye. One is creepy dolls, and the other is pirates. And you have
pirates.
The story of the
Ohio River pirates.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I never knew there was such a thing. I never knew there was such a thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You know, of course, I had lost the page just now.
86.
So I'll try to look at it so I can.
It's 86, page 86. Yeah.
86. Oh, yes.
They get pirates in Ohio River here.
Yep.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. It's like, you know, if you were a settler, and you know, way back then, back in the 1780s and stuff like that, there were a lot of ex-Revolutionary War soldiers that were given plots of land, like especially with George Washington, because the Congress would never come up with the back payroll that they owed these people for winning the War of Independence, you know. So they would, General Washington would hand out these land grants for payment for back payroll, because the Congress had voted not to pay these people what they had owed them for, like, I think it was 6 or 8 months worth of payroll, because they said, hey, you know, we won the war. What do we need to pay them for? But what happened was there was a lot of you know, Revolutionary War soldiers that had been given these great plots of land in Ohio, that they forgot to mention the fact that the Shawnee thought it was their land also. But anyway, yeah. So what they would do, they had this idea. They said, instead of going overland and trying to, you know, go through all this different Indian territory, let's take the river. If you'll follow the river, where it goes down from Pennsylvania, it pretty much has an opening in southern Ohio, so you don't have to take the boats from the Great Lakes and travel down. These people would travel north off of the river. So anyway, in 1785, so settlers began drifting down the river on flat boats laden with their supplies and money. At the time, Ohio was a dense frontier wilderness with no law enforcement. This presented the perfect opportunity for pirates to plunder. They camped close to the river and lured settlers to shore by pretending to have supplies or food to sell. Often they would station their women close to the shore who would feign injury and starvation. Soon, the unsuspecting settlers, whenever they reached the shore for help, they were killed and all their goods were stolen. The bodies were then dumped into the river. A great many of these treacherous bands occupied the Ohio River's banks, all the way from Cairo, Illinois, where it merges with the Mississippi. Eventually, flatboat pioneers traveled in groups for protection, hiring keelboat escorts armed not only with fighting men, but with cannons and cutlasses as well. This strategy proved successful in protecting the defenseless flatboats. Today, historians conservatively estimate that more than 2,000 innocent men, women, and children lost their lives to these violent pirates. those were dark and dirty times. They weren't like, you know, the pleasant Walt Disney-esque, you know, what was the name of the guy, Finn McCool or something like that, who was another river pirate. Not very nice people. Not very nice people.
And so the bodies were simply just dumped by the river or in the river?
That's right. Just laden with whatever, and they would just, all the women and children and everybody, and they murdered them all until they had the keel boats and other boats that with fighting men on side them that served as an escort. And these stories, that they're true, and they're well documented and everything like that. But it's a part of Ohio's history that we like to look over, as they're, because that's just easier this way. But it is history.
Very much.
It is history.
And the other, which fascinated me, was the Cincinnati subway.
Yes.
Because all those dark tunnels, you figure, I can imagine people bootlegging in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, the Cincinnati subway, the remnants of the pictures that I have posted that are on there, they still exist. You go down I-75 South, you'll see the openings they had for the transit cars to emerge from, and the ticket counters and everything like that. They're all still there, and the amount of money that Cincinnati is coming up just to maintain this short little bit of shortwave system is, short little system is what is like $500,000 a year, to combat plumbing and flooding and stuff like that. It's something amazing, because they still have it in their heads that they just might have a fast rail service from Cincinnati to Dayton to Lima. And I do know for a fact that Dayton is pretty much voted down coming up with the money of it, because just the idea of more people leaving Dayton faster is not attractive to them.
That's one way to put it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So are you allowed to go into those subway systems?
No, you're not allowed to go in there because of potential of lawsuits and stuff like that. But they are still there. They are locked down real tight because in the last few years, urban archaeology has become a new art. One that I pioneered a long time ago. But I won't talk about that. But anyway. But they're still there. They're still there. I mean, with it just goes from point to another point, and it just stopped because when they ran out of money, and supposedly wasn't it I forgot what year that they started it, but it wasn't until the 1960s that they finally paid off their last payment on the debt for building the bridges themselves, the subway itself. Have you got I'll see if I can find the page right now, which I'm not doing very well.
For which one?
The Cincinnati subway, which is page 30. Another example of our tax dollars well spent. Okay, in 2002, Cincinnati voters rejected the half-cent tax to develop a $2.6 billion light rail plan, and today the city continues to maintain the tunnels at a cost of more than $500,000 a year. Oh, that's it. In 1966, the original subway bonds to build the start of the subway were finally paid off in 1966.
Wow.
So that was the construction came to a stop in 1927. So that's a pretty long time.
Well, it's still run down pretty good underneath there in those tunnels.
Yes, it is. They've got people that have broken in, which is a bad thing, and taken a lot of video of some of the stuff that's down there, which is pretty amazing that this stuff is still there. They're going to do. Yeah,
so I wouldn't want to go down there. So
I'm sorry?
I said I wouldn't want to go down there.
There are people that love that. They think it's wonderful and it's terrific. But I think there are things that should not be seen, you know?
All right. Barbara, did you have another one real quick?
Oh, yeah, and that is the Fair Harbor Lighthouse.
Oh,
There's
good
a
one.
cat.
Yes.
Sentinel, I love that. What page is that on?
That is 98.
98. Here. Now, originally, when I first had the idea to come back on the show, I told myself that I would have all the information right in front of me. It did not happen. Anyway, the Fairport Harbor Marine Museum was founded in 1945, and it is the first Great Lakes Lighthouse Museum in the United States. Originally, it was built in 1825, and the lighthouse was rebuilt in 1871. It now stands 60 feet high with a spiral staircase that leads to an observation platform. In 1871, Captain Joseph Babcock was the lighthouse keeper, and he resided with his wife on the second floor. His wife was bedridden, so the captain gave her many cats to keep her company. After she died, most of the cats disappeared, except one gray cat. Years later, the curator at the museum, who lived on the second floor, reported many sightings of a gray ghost cat racing playfully in the kitchen from time to time. The sightings continued year after year, and employees at the museum half-jokingly named their ghost cat Sentinel. In May of 2001, workers installing air conditioning vents at the base of the tower discovered the mummified remains of a gray cat. I love that story.
Oh, yeah.
I love that story.
That was a very good one.
It was.
Well,
It was.
I hope they buried the kitty with, in a nice grave. And
I'm sorry.
I hope they buried the kitty in a nice grave. And
Oh, I'm sure that they did. I'm sure that they did. People would, they just they love the legend, and they also love the idea of the gray cat. Did you like anything about that Franklin Castle story?
The Franklin Castle in Cleveland?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that one I'm searching for now. 50, page 50. Yes, this is one of those things where it's an overtold legend, in Ohio that has a lot of people that are theorists have come up with a whole bunch of different theories about this whole thing. But the whole bare facts of the thing are, they were saying for a while that, it was a Nazi spy ring and all this other stuff that was pretty much unsubstantiated. But if you think about it, as like Barbara was talking before about the creepy old house in town that everybody knows for a fact is haunted. The way I've written it is, it's a recipe for a haunted house.
Because it is. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I said it is. If I'm not mistaken, they don't allow people to go in to investigate it anymore. They used to have investigations there.
That's what I had heard, but there was just so much information. It's like Helltown, Mm-hmm. It's I'm sure you're familiar with Helltown, and if the other listeners haven't heard of it, Helltown is actually about a place called Boston, Ohio, which is pretty just a wonderful little town that just the money ran out, and then the people ran out, and there were just a bunch of these homes there, and there all these different unsubstantiated legends came up. About one was about the Melon Head babies. Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. Where supposedly at this house there was a doctor was doing experiments on infants by injecting water in their brains and all this just terrible stuff. But it's one of those haunted houses that were, like you said, they're keeping people out of it now. About the only thing that is interesting for me on this whole thing about Franklin Castle, I mean, it's a wonderfully spooky old looking pile of rocks, but the Cleveland's deputy coroner, okay, got involved with this because the house itself has a great many secret rooms and passages that lead to nowhere, and hidden panels that you can, things have been found. But there was this pinch of truth with this terrifying legend about the Tiedemann house, that it harbored an axe murderer who used the hidden rooms and passages to conceal his crime. In 1975, a secret cabinet was discovered that contained human bones. And Cleveland's deputy coroner, Dr. Lester Adelson, stated that, quote, "They're very old, but definitely human."
But very old, yes.
Yes, but it was one of those things I went, whenever you get this, because when sometimes you read these stories, you say, are there any artifacts? Are there any things? But with someone who's like holds a public position like a coroner, validates some of the evidence, that makes it more spooky. So
yes. So whose were they? But they don't know. So
yeah, but Hilltown has always been kind of hotbed of discussion as far as conspiracy theories, and people were told to leave, all that other lovely stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it's pretty much like you guys were talking about earlier on another show. It's like whenever you hear all these stories about people uncovering giant skeletons, and the hints that like it was a race of giants that inhabited us before. I think it was Henry or somebody said, now wait a minute, that's a great story, it's a wonderful story, but if these bones do exist, where are they now?
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, when they found people who have found skeletons of giants, they're usually like, oh, well, we'll just take them to some scientists and we bring them to the Smithsonian Institute, which immediately hides them and say, what giant skeletons?
Well, the other thing that I had come across it was it was the name of this this alliance of Indians who whenever someone discovers the remains of a Native American, they say, no, we get them and we bury them on our land, in our nation. And that makes a lot of sense for some of this, because I forget the name of it, Nagtha or some kind of a thing like that, where that goes, okay, NAGPRA, okay, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. Okay, that's the name of the people who come in and claim the remains. That's just another one of those things where, okay, suddenly that door's closed too.
All right.
So apparently Helltown also has a Crybaby Bridge.
Now that Crybaby Bridge thing is wonderful, and it's one of those stories that I love it. But have you ever read any of Chris Woodyard's stuff with Haunted Ohio?
Yes.
She has a wonderful thing. She starts off with, okay, as far as I know, there are 15 Crybaby Bridges in Ohio, and you know where that's going. So, what she's saying makes an awful lot of sense. But it's another one of those stories that are so folded in with local legends that you never can be really, really sure about it,
Well, I've always figured that if you're listening to what sounds like cries of screaming women in the woods, it's probably the cries of foxes.
Of foxes, yeah. There's other birds, a lot of fauna that, because Ohio is still alive with a lot of loons and cranes and things that make at first unidentifiable things. and they are creepy. Let's
Oh.
just say it, they are creepy.
Their cries, yep.
Now, I'm okay. My shop is here. It's about 12, 14 miles north of Dayton, and it's still basically agriculture. You know, a lot of farms are surrounded here with pretty big acreage, and a lot of times I'm here working late by myself because that's the only time I can fully concentrate on what I need to do. You know, and to write something or to draw something. But coyotes have made a comeback here in our part of Ohio, and that's and if you hear 3 or 4 of them, you know, in the middle, you know, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and they start yelping and making all that noise, it's real. It really puts a spook in you. It really does. But we do have, you know, since I'm across the street from this airport, there is a lot of vacant land that where these animals are living in, and they're all over the place. But whenever they start to howling, you know, it'll make the hairs on the back of your neck, you know, stand right up. It's spooky and it's creepy. It really is.
All right, we got our time is, you know, running right on by. I got one here. If you wanted to go look for gold, this is probably a good place you can go. The name of your story is called Turkeyfoot Creek Treasure.
Yes.
That's on page 110.
Yes. I have to go over here to my board to get it. Get the story.
You should have just had a copy.
Go ahead.
You should have just had a copy of your book there.
Yeah, I do, but sometimes it's, you know, it's stumbling through the pages. I did have this one page out because I love this story because, you know, with this and what I didn't have room to also write in on the synapse of the story is there are a great many people that have gone to the location of where, you know, they've heard something or they, you know, that really do believe that they were trampled by this ghost on horseback, which there just wasn't enough room for it. But the bare bones of the story was following the defeat at Fallen Timbers. Mad Anthony Wayne led the battle, and he ordered pretty much all of the American tribes were ordered to migrate to Oklahoma, and we all know about the Trail of Tears and everything. And the Indians are said to have hidden 40,000 in gold stolen from an army paymaster en route to Fort Defiance during the war. That's the war, the French and Indian War. Intending to retrieve the loot and take back their land, they buried it on the banks of Turkeyfoot Creek near the village of Shunk, Ohio. That's Shunk, Ohio. That's the name of the place. In addition, they left a ghost warrior on horseback to guard the treasure. And ever since then, through the generations, it's another one of those stories that keep popping up time and again, where you have witnesses that say pretty much the same thing that is happening to them. That the reports have surfaced that the ghost warrior will run down anyone who gets too close to where the treasure is buried. Now, the village of Shunk still exists and is near Napoleon, Ohio, on State Route 109 in Henry County. And perhaps the ghost warrior still waits and watches. I love that story. But I just didn't have enough room for all the witnesses and all the accounts that people had where they'll get to a place where they feel that they are very, very close, and suddenly this rider on a on a white horse thunders out of nowhere and runs them over, just tramples them. Of course, they're not physically been touched by this thing, but just this phantom just, you know, and they're gone. They leave right then and there.
Wow. Well, you got, you know, there's $40,000 in gold, so maybe somebody can find it. Maybe we got to get Josh Gates.
Well, it's another one of those stories that if the trouble with a lot of these rivers or little creeks and stuff like that is that they change their paths over years and years and years of time.
Oh yeah.
But I really believe that there is treasures out there if you just have the correct, eyewitness accounts, where there's stuff out there. That's the same thing as the Ashtabula Bridge disaster. They had another one where a steam engine early, in the 1800s, 1880s, I believe, it was during a blinding snowstorm, leapt off the tracks on this bridge that overhauls it, and it had Army payroll on it, and supposedly, it whenever it went off the bridge, of course, the boiler in the steam engine exploded. All the cars were, made of wood, and they wind up like tinder real fast, and they burn fast. And anyway, the thing about it is, for me, is whenever you have a story like that, but you start to get more recent documentation for it. There was if you look on look up the Ashtabula Bridge disaster, which I don't have in front of me. There are a couple of elements of the story that are fun, but recently there was a guy who was fishing near to where they believe the Ashtabula Bridge once stood, and he snagged a pilot wheel from the locomotive. Now, a pilot wheel is like one of those smaller wheels in front, not the big tall drive wheels of the steam engine, but one of the ones for a pilot. He snagged that, and he was fishing, and it caught on something, and so since it was a little dry, like 4 or 5 years ago, he was able to go into the creek, wade into the creek, and pull this heavy wheel out to the banks of the shore. And by the time he got it on the banks of the shore, the Park Service stopped him right then and there and said, "No, you're on state land, and that's an artifact, and you can't have it." Okay, and pretty much chased him off and threatened him with lawsuits and everything like that.
Huh.
But the thing about it is the if you follow the story on the net, it goes on more, where for over generations of time, of course, since the 1880s, there's been a lot of people that have gone out there with shovels prospecting and looking, because they still know the exact location of the bridge itself because of the pylons that were left. But of course, none of the superstructure is there. And looking for gold, because it was this payroll was all in gold for the Army. But the Park Service says there's nothing there. We know there's nothing there. Don't even bother looking. Don't come on our land, and everything like that.
Wow.
But the main thing that they keep hitting on, and they have lawyers that they've brought lawyers out to reinforce the fact that anything that is there is theirs. Now, if there isn't anything there, but just like the wreckage of an old locomotive, okay. But if they're saying, okay, we're going to back this up with all kinds of legal maneuvering so that we're sure that you don't get anything, because we're not saying there is anything, but we get it, which is in its own way kind of neat for me,
All right, we got time for one quick one, kind of. And okay. I think there's so many that I wanted to get to, but we ain't got time. This one you should be able to do.
Buy the book. It's on
I've got the book.
All you have to do is type in there, Ohio Legends Jeff Wilson, or you could go to my Facebook page and look at the artwork for yourself.
Right. Page 80, the Miamisburg Ghost.
Now the Miamisburg Ghost. Now that one is so cool because they had hundreds, and I mean literally hundreds of people, see this apparition. So many. And it's another one of those things that there are just way too many people that are saying the same thing. And actually it got to the point where actually at some nights, hundreds of people would turn up to this to this graveyard to see this apparition slowly walk. Let me tell you about it. Okay, the Miamisburg Cemetery is now at the present day site of Library Park in Miamisburg, Ohio. Miamisburg is just a little south of Dayton. Anyway, it became famous in 1894 for nightly sightings of a restless ghost. It was believed at the time that the ghost was a young woman who had recently been murdered. Witnesses said she walked slowly, as if in a trance, and didn't appear to notice those around her. When she reached her gravesite, she would disappear. Incredibly, the ghost sightings became so frequent that large unwanted crowds began to gather on a nightly basis to watch. Now, this was all backed up with newspaper reports and everything, that all of them are saying the same thing, that hundreds of people are turning out for this. Some sources suggest that in that year, hundreds of people witnessed the specter. In an attempt to stop the sightings, her body was exhumed and moved to another cemetery, but still the appearances continued. Soon all the bodies were removed from the Miamisburg Cemetery to nearby Hill Grove Cemetery. The most recent sighting of the lady in whites, were the one who makes the walk, were reported in the 1980s. Now this is in 1894 to 1980s. They're reporting this the same stuff, which I thought was, I had seen some of the archival stuff of the newspapers and stuff that they had written about it, and it all agrees. And she walks to her graves and disappears, and that's it. And that was enough to creep me out. And it does have a very good line drawing that accompanies it.
Wow.
Okay.
Barbara, did you have Jeff? Go ahead.
I was going to say, what page was that? I didn't hear it. It broke up a bit.
Oh, the Miamisburg Ghost was page 80.
That was close.
I really would like to suggest that everybody comes to the Facebook page, because I have some of my sample pages, well, a great deal of my sample pages that are, and check out what we've got. And the Ohio Legends Department of Shameless Commerce would like to remind everyone that all three books, Ohio Legends 1, 2, and 3, are available at Amazon.com. And they even have a Kindle edition too.
All
which
right.
is really kind of
There you go.
That way, and that way you can see some of the line drawings I've done. And please, 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 if you have that one story, that one thing that you heard once, send it to me, to Ohio Legends 2011 at yahoo.com, and give me some leads, because there's always more stories. Everybody has one good story about Ohio. And thank you, Henry, for giving me the chance to talk to everybody, because I love your show.
Well, thank you.
Well, my question is I don't see a lot of alien or cryptid stories in your books. Is that because people aren't reaching out to you yet about them?
No. There are cryptid stories in there. One that I really love that I'm sure you can find on the Facebook page, or send me your address and I'll email one of them to you, is the story of the Buckeye Grassman. And he's like I only put this paranormal stuff in here, but the cryptid stories, there were so many cryptid stories, unbelievable. The Ohio Grassman is a big one. South Bay Bessie is another big one. And there are just a great many very odd things that are going on in the state. And I'm not sure what that means, but I'm here trying to write down as much as I can.
How about Bigfoot?
Well, Bigfoot is there, but see, the difference is Bigfoot is like that's an Oregon kind of West Coast kind of thing, but our Bigfoot pretty much is like that, but I claim that he's his Bigfoot's shorter, smaller cousin. Because he's nowhere close to 10 feet tall or 8 foot tall. He's a smaller little guy, and he's very clever, because there is some places where I've noted where they all use teamwork to bring down prey, okay, and they make rude bomas which are like with a place for them to sleep at night. They bury their dead. It's one of those things where they're going that think that they're yet another species, but a little brighter than the ones in California. Just kidding.
All right. There's tons of stories in this book that we never even come close to getting to. I mean, you've got stories in there from Civil War heroes, World War II heroes, and all the feats that they've done. And all these people are from Ohio. You need to take a look at all three of his books. They're very interesting, and like I said, it's a good book to keep around in the bathroom or beside your bed at night and read a few stories. Lots of interesting things.
And what's cool is they don't take themselves too seriously.
No. And there's things in there that you just find incredible.
I would love to see a movie made out of the Union soldier and the Confederate soldier just having a fist fight in the middle of a
yes,
field.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I love that story so much. That is so cool. I wrote that story and I put my pen down and I said, "All right, Ken Burns, you can call me now."
All right, our time's running right on out. Barbara, you got anything you want to say about him or to him?
Well, I just again want to say I really think you ought to start making prints of that troll doll because it's adorable. Your artwork is wonderful in the book, and if you buy the book for anything else, folks, buy it for the artwork because it's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. It really does.
All right. What we're going to do is before we run, I want you to take time to tell people how they can follow you, get in contact with you, and of course you done said where they can get your books, but tell them again anyway, and then we'll get ready to sign off.
Okay. As I mentioned before, I am my own department of shameless commerce here, but as I mentioned before, Ohio Legends books, Ohio Legends 1, 2, and 3 are available at Amazon.com. Just type in Ohio Legends Jeff Wilson, you'll find us. And of course, you'll also find us on Facebook. I'm all over the place, and I'm waiting for you to send your Ohio Legends story to me. Okay? Now, if it's good enough, I'll put you in a byline at the beginning of the beginning pages of the book. Go ahead.
So when's your number 4 going to be coming out?
I don't know, but it's one of those things where I know as soon as I begin to protect anything, it's generally wrong. So we'll see what happens. But I was trying to look for a bigger format where I could have more room to write chapters on some of these stories, and that would be a lot of fun for me. It really would. All right. And thanks again for giving me a chance to share my little stories with you. It's been a great experience. Thank you again.
Well, I want you to stay on until we're off the air, and we'll thank you again.
Okay.
So next week, I want to let everybody know that we have Thomas Workman on with us. I believe it's next week. And
I've heard of him.
Have you? We're going to see what's been going on here with UFOs. And no telling. With that, I guess, Barbara, you got anything to add real quick?
Stay safe, wash your hands, put your mask on, and back off.
All right. And Jeff?
I guess we didn't have listeners tonight.
Oh, I never even thought about that.
The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, and Spain.
All right. Wow. So with that, we got to run. Thanks, everybody, for listening tonight. We will see you next week at the same time. This is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
And Barbara Duncan.
Good night, everybody. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.